Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today our topic is Beginner Buys House, No Money Down.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam, and I'm glad you joined me today for Beginner Buys House, No Money Down. Is there anything more fun for a coach than to see one of his students knock it out of the park with his first swing? What adds some joy to this happening is one of those people following your coaching advice is your kid. Welcome back to the podcast, Aaron Whitwam.
It's good to join the podcast again.
I invited you back today so that we could talk about a recent house purchase that you did with no money down. I mean, I talk about no money down a lot of time, on the podcast and in speaking engagements. And a lot of times you get a little bit of pushback. Well, you can't do that today. It's impossible. It's against the law, all those kind of things. So I thought we'd just start. I just want to ask you a couple questions before we get deep into this about how you did it. Are you ready?
Sounds good.
All right. So when you got started in the process, were you making like a six-figure income? You had lots of money. You were able to do whatever you want in real estate and had lots of assets, all that kind of stuff.
No, my business was doing well, but it was still, in its growth period. And, all my savings were invested in my pool business, and I wasn't even sure I could invest in real estate at all at the time.
What about the house you were living in? Were you able to, sell it to fund this investment purchase, or what did you do with the house that you were living in?
No, I didn't own a home at the time, and I was, mostly focused just on my pool business at that point.
Okay, so you were making a modest income, and you were renting a house. So then what happened?
Well, I was living in a condo, and the landlord was increasing the rent. And so you asked me, when are you going to buy a house and start investing in yourself?
So you had a problem. You didn't have $50,000 or $60,000 sitting in a savings account that was like, hey, I'm saving this up so that I can buy a house someday, or I can buy an investment. You didn't have something to sell that you could fund this thing with. So it kind of puts you in an interesting situation.
Yeah, and when it comes to, like creative financing, investing in real estate, how to buy a house with no money down, I had an advantage, which was that you teach people how to do those.
Yeah, and you had a good plan. It's the thing we call house hacking. So you'd actually kind of started it, when you were renting, and now the thing is could we find the right opportunity, purchase it, rent out the unused portions of it, to pay for the house so that your income and your cash on hand really weren't limiting factors.
Yeah, and when we discussed how to do this, it was to make sure that the purchase price was going to be less than me just paying rent and having someone else help pay off the property in total.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you did this and how you avoided a massive down payment, which most people get hit with when they're trying to buy an investment property.
Yeah, and I had a huge advantage in that you were coaching me through this.
Now, you did have, some advantages, but what was it like? Because I know you're bright. I know you're really smart. You obviously you started your own business. You're doing well in that. You've done, some many other things that I would say that kind of put you at least in the upper half of ability. You're great. You were great in school. But you were limited by the amount of money that you had. So how would you put all this kind of together with those kind of limiting factors?
It's simply following the process. And that's how you taught me, and as you teach others. It's stick to the process, follow this process. This is how it's going to get taken care of.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the process, because a lot of times when I talk about no money down, people make the mistake of thinking that means I'm saying that I have a process for making this free. And it's not free. My dad used to say, there's no such thing in life as a free lunch. So no money down doesn't mean free.
Yeah, I ended up having to provide the earnest money and have a home inspection done as well. And even though you have a construction company, you recommended that I get an unbiased inspection done on the property as well.
Yeah, and people ask me, because I'm an investor and contractor, own the contracting company. And they ask me why in the world, I would have a home inspector. But here's what I've found for myself: if I'm buying a property and I go and the numbers are just great and they look good, sometimes that'll cloud my vision with regards to issues that may be in the property. So I get an independent set of eyes in order to help to deal with clouded vision. And that's what I wanted you to do too, because I was excited for the fact that you were taking this step, and I didn't want to be kind of the impetus for you doing something that really had some issues. So let me ask you this though: how much earnest money did you have to put down? Like $5,000, $10,000 to get this investment going?
No, because you advised to never put down more earnest money than the seller is comfortable with. So my earnest money actually only ended up being about $100.
You only put $100 earnest money down on this property. And I do, with my coaching students, I advise them, never put down any more earnest money than what a seller will require or you can negotiate. And I love putting $100 down. Now, sometimes when we work on deals that are off the MLS, because there's real estate agents involved, you're going to be required to put 1%, or maybe if it's a cash deal, 5 or 10% of the purchase down. But I love it when you can actually put like $100 down for your earnest money, and then you had a home inspection done. I mean, how much did you have to pay to get the home inspection done?
I believe the home inspection was around $300.
So you're telling me between earnest money and home inspection, you're in this investment property now $400.
That's right.
But everybody who purchases a house knows that you're going to have these things called closing costs. You're going to have down payments. You're going to have all these junk fees and all the rest of the stuff, and you're only in this thing $400.
Yeah, and that's where most people are probably thinking that you can't do this. It's going to be impossible. It may be illegal. But when we wrote the offer, and I should say you showed me how to write an offer, we included a seller credit to cover my closing costs. And since the house needed some work, you said we could write in money for repairs sufficient to cover the cost of that down payment as well.
Yeah. Now let me just note here: you can't do this on every loan. Some lenders will allow you to do that, so you have to know what your lender will allow. And then I look for lenders who will work with me on creative financing, because again, there are certain rules. If your lender's doing a Freddie Mac loan, it's going to have to be underwritten by Freddie Mac standards, or an FHA. It's going to VA and all those underwritten by their standards. But you got to find a loan where your funder will allow you to use some of these techniques. And in this case, you wanted to put permanent financing or permanent funding in this thing, so we had to find an acceptable solution. So how much of the closing costs and down payment did you have to bring close? Because you're only in this thing $400 so far with your earnest money and your home inspection. So how much did you have to bring in for closing costs and your down payment?
Nothing.
You brought no money in. So you closed a no money down deal and had no closing costs.
That's correct. And then I had you do the repairs.
Yeah. So, one of the things, that we would do in a no money down situation like this is where I'm coming in and can do the repairs and get this all taken care of really quick. We looked at what needed to be done, what you wanted to be done in order to function for this house hack, and get this thing done. So let me just kind of recap here, because a lot of people, aren't really going to believe, that they really don't understand the methodology. You put $100 earnest money down, you put $300 down for a home inspection, and then we wrapped in to the no money down process using the methodology we find at Whitwam Wealth Academy, our coaching methodology, to cover your down payment and your closing costs, so that you actually had $400 in the entire acquisition of the property.
That's correct. And it works. I did it. So, the system or the keys to this no money down that you teach actually work. And I purchased my first investment with no money down. I did this house hack, and it's helping to pay off the loan.
And so where did that leave you, in the situation like now? I mean, where are you at with this investment? Obviously, your loan's being paid off through the house hack for having other people help pay your mortgage. But what did it leave you as far as for equity and profit?
It worked so well that I've got $190,000 in equity into this investment already, and nothing else I've done has ever, made me so much money in such a short amount of time.
And people wonder why I love this business. I mean, it has the ability to produce more revenue, more income than anything else in a short period of time if you use proven principles. If you use logic, you don't try to speculate, you don't get out over your skis, you just do things right. Now we're running out of time here. So do you have anything that you could, kind of say about the process and how it worked for you?
The process works. Stick to the process, stick to the training, stick to the advice, and it'll work for you as well.
All right, we are out of time, and you've been listening to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. We've been talking with Aaron Whitwam, and I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this episode, Beginner Buys House, No Money Down. And if you found it helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you, especially if you have any questions about our No Money Down buying system. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.